everybody. Welcome to another brand new spoiler review episode here for Ms. Marvel from the
Geek Buddies.
Hey! Yeah, that's a good one. We're on point there. Well, we're back at it this week to talk about episode 4, Seeing Red, which is what I saw when Michael Vogel said he couldn't be on the review today. But hey, you know, that's how it goes sometimes. You're an executive producer of a show. Talent is talent. You got to let talent be talent. But Shannon McClung and I are here to hold the fort down and talk about this episode 4, where we go to Karachi, Pakistan. We get a little more of the history of the Bengal. We get a little bit more of her connection with her grandmother. We get to spend some time with Nani, Muneeba, and Nani having some issues. We get a window into that. She meets some new cousins, and she finds a new ally in this war against the Clan Destine. And this is there's a lot that we're going to talk about for sure as we get into this episode and have our thoughts. But let's introduce ourselves. I am the Outlaw John Roca, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies in the Outlaw Nation. Shannon?
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer, where the second season of Strawberry Shortcake Berry in the Big City is now is being released on YouTube, and the most recent episode was one of mine. So it was one that I was it was truly a team effort. I had this idea that I was shocked that Michael Vogel went for.
Yeah.
And then once it got written, executives had thoughts, more stuff came in, but ultimately I think what debuted, I think, was really, really good. That's
awesome. A challenging episode that required multiple levels of people to approve it. That's a good thing. That means you're thinking outside the box, I would imagine. That is a good thing overall. So
and again, the difficulties were way after I was done. Vogel was like, "Hey, by the way,
I'll let you know
great idea of yours."
Go through with this 4-minute short. Yes. Anyway, yeah. So that's good to hear for sure. And of course, Michael is not here with us this time around. He's off traveling, but he will be back next week for sure for the main show in this and then episode 5 review for Ms. Marvel. And of course, we're preparing for a lot of things that are coming up here in the next few weeks. That's going to be a lot of fun for us to be covering here on the Geek Buddies. But we wouldn't be able to do half of what we do without the support of you all and the support of Carbon Health. That's right. Carbon Health still powering and sponsoring the Geek Buddies. Thank you so much. We're going into our 8th month of sponsorship from Carbon Health, so we can't thank them enough. And if you have not heard, if you're first time watching this review, Carbon Health is a great place to go get your healthcare questions and concerns and needs addressed and met. They have 125 locations nationwide, 80 plus locations in California alone. They offer urgent care at all their locations. They got COVID testing. They've got you can pick up antigen testing kits there in the clinic as well. They think great healthcare should always be convenient and accessible to everybody. They love to hang out with us and support us here because they think you all deserve a healthcare provider who is an active partner in supporting you in your efforts. And as I said, 100 plus locations across 14 states, 50 plus locations in California alone. And they continue to partner with us because Carbon Health genuinely cares about positive communities who engage with each other over the love of culture and expressions of life. And certainly, Shannon, this episode was an explosion of culture and expressions of life here in this Seeing Red episode. Let's jump into it. This is a spoiler review, so final spoiler warning here. If you haven't seen it, go watch it and come on back. Thoughts on this episode 4 here as we get, I think we're past the halfway point, as we have 2 more episodes left here, Ms. Marvel.
Yeah, this one was a little bit more of a challenge for me, and it wasn't so much what was being presented, it was how it was being presented. I think there were some editorial choices that I was not the biggest fan of. There's one performance in particular from a new character who I'm like, this guy's not doing it for me. Okay. But some of the auditions that we got that we'll go into, 2 of the auditions I really liked, and one of them I'm disappointed that we more than likely won't be seeing anymore. But overall, even though this one did not have the strength of episodes 1, 2, and 3 for me, I'm still very much on board with this show. I'm really enjoying it. Iman Vellani is still doing such great work, and I love where the episode ended. It really ended on a high for me, because I'm so curious to see what this what that sequence is going to lead us to in the next episode.
Certainly a powerful moment to end you know, just standing on top of that train, looking over everything that is happening in the partition, and the just the pain and the sadness and the general madness of it all. Just, what a brilliant decision to pull back and show it all, so you can absolutely feel what Kamala is feeling in this situation. So yeah, I think this episode lacked a little bit of oomph, but you know, it's dare I say this, in a 6-episode miniseries, it's a little bit of a filler episode. But we were getting information that we needed to get. We do have Kamala learning how to use her powers a little bit more. We do have her getting a fabric that's going to play into the overall costume as we go into these last 2 episodes. We do get a little bit more of the culture, certainly of Karachi, and showing what is there in Pakistan, and seeing, you know, the view of the city from this point of view here with the MCU. So I really enjoyed that, the deep dive into the culture and all of that. I just felt some of the rhythm and the patterns were a bit disjointed, and we jumped from one thing to another. And I know we've been saying you got to look at this through a little bit of a young adult eyes. I get that, but I think a little more depth, a little more explanation on things to ground them into the overall narrative you're telling of the series would have helped out to help this episode be just as powerful as the other 3 episodes have been, for sure. And you're right, Iman Vellani, fantastic in this episode overall, kind of writing out all the things that are happening with her grandmother, with her mom, with her cousins, with her new guy Kareem there from the Red Dagger, Waleed, and everything that happens when the Clan Destine shows up, for sure. So let's jump into this thing here. Let's talk about it. I mean, Kamala and Muneeba are on a plane heading to Pakistan here, bickering between each other. Nakia is not responding over text. So we have no Nakia or Bruno in this episode, other than the idea of them is kind of Nakia is certainly mentioned here, waiting on a text message for her, so it's not coming. So she's basically alone. Her and her mom heading here because Nani has requested it. They show up. They're picked up by 2 of their cousins, Zainab and Oways. I hope I'm saying that right. Nani comes up and they hug. Muneeba and Nani hug as well. And she goes right on in, as some daughters will tell you about their mothers. She goes right on in going, oh, your skin's getting a little dry there. Is it one of your crazy diets and blah, blah, blah. So already we can tell these kind of divisions here between mom and daughter, which will mirror later, I imagine, what will happen between Muneeba and Ms. Marvel. They arrive at a gated house, which is where Nani lives here. She sees Magnum, which is Nani's dog. Kamala walks in a room full of heirlooms and art and drawing and clippings, and she's a picture of her grandfather and Aisha, her great-grandmother. Kamala brings out the bangle and wants to know why Nani sent it to her. She discusses very casually about being a jinn, does Nani, and Kamala confirms the train that the bangle is trying to tell her something. When you have lived and lost like I have, you learn to find beauty in the pieces. So already, this is Shannon, right off the bat in this first section, is about exploring. She wants answers, and Nani seems to have the answers, but she's so casual about it. And this is a nice clash of cultures, I think, because nowadays everybody moves so fast. Yes, we used to move fast in the old days, but certainly nowadays, even more so, the demands on our time, the demands on our attention with social media, TV, everything going on, politics, whatever, the demands on our time is a lot. Whereas people who are a little bit older have been through the wars of everything, through the wars of life, and they're a little more relaxed about stuff. So I thought it was a nice clash of cultures here. And we're going to find out how her 2 cousins, well, at least one of them has an issue with how she sees herself as a Pakistani American. So what did you think about this opening, kind of laying the groundwork a little bit of what we're getting here in these clash of cultures as she seeks more information about the bangle?
I mean, the strongest part of this episode, or of the series, really has been Kamala's relationship with her family.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that's a telltale sign of a really good story, especially a superhero story, because generally in superheroes, like, well, I get the costume on, we want to see a fight. But the fact that we are just as invested, if not more invested, when she's hanging out with her mom, when she's hanging out with her brother, when she's hanging out with her father, and now with her grandmother. I mean, really, really nice stuff between Kamala and her grandmother. And then later in the episode, we get some really great stuff between Muneeba and Sana as well. I liked my wife and I were watching it, and she was like, really, they got there in the middle of the night, just the cousins got there to say hi and to say hello. I'm like, hey man, that's not that's not an American thing, but clearly that's something that other people across the world will do, because if you have family that lives literally on the other side of the globe, like, you want to take every opportunity to see them, even though you can tell, like, they're cousins, but just because you're family doesn't mean you really like each other.
Right. You probably haven't seen each other in a long time. Yeah, which they make a comment about when they see each other for sure.
And I mean, the actress playing Sana, who is Samina Ahmed, who I thought was really, like, just this nice grounding presence. I mean, she's like, you can tell, like, this is Muneeba's mom,
right? Because
when they talk about, I'll talk about this when we get to it, but just, you can see the similarities between the women in this family.
Yeah.
And something else where she was talking about, like, to me, this was just genetics, and you talk about people. This is literally a story about someone who's in between two worlds.
Yeah.
It's in between sort of like being an American youth, but having a Pakistani upbringing, Pakistani parents. You have this superpowered side of you, but you still want to hold on to the normal side of you. I mean, that's what the writing in the show is really, really good.
Agreed. And, this is based on an issue of the comic. I think it's number 12 from Ms. Marvel, where she does go to Karachi, Pakistan. And it's interesting you bring up the idea of being between two worlds, because what she says in the comics there is she's too Pakistani when she's in America, and she's too American when she's in Pakistan. So there is that kind of idea of being between two worlds. So mirrored in her own life already. And now with the bangle, we find out a little bit later in the episode, there are also two different existences slamming into each other as well, where she's part of each of them. And where does she belong is where we're going to actually, I imagine, figure out, which is funny because Nani later in the episode says, I'm still trying to figure out who I am, which I think is a really nice moment in the episode. So Kamala falls asleep, dreams of the train, and there's all these images that come through in the dream. The cousins come in. They want to go to lunch. They head to this high-end club for lunch. Unfortunately, Kamala wears jeans because she was not told that she can't wear jeans. But it's kind of a jerk move by the cousins to not let her know not to wear jeans before they head on out to the club there. Ruxana comes in. Oh, I don't know who she is or what role she's going to play, but she seems to be an old friend of Muneeba's there. We see scenes of Karachi as they take a tour with the cousins. We hear about Old Town, which is where many of the refugees settled in when they came from India. So certainly Partition becomes a huge thing, Shannon, even bigger rather, in this episode. It's certainly referenced here, her being in Pakistan, the conversations about it, her cousins are aware of it. But then one of her cousins, I think it's Onays, calls her says that calls her an ABCD, which is an American-born confused Desi. Now, let me tell you something about being in a culture. And Shannon, maybe you've had a little bit of this as well, but as a Latino, you do when you go visit other Latino countries and you're an American Latino, there's always those Latinos that are going to take these little shots at you because you're an American Latino. You're seen as lesser than that. And that effing happens. And so just letting you know, it's not just in this culture, but a number of cultures when you go and visit overseas. I'm sure Africans, when black people come over from America, Africans are like, oh, yeah, you're American black. I'm sure that happens. So that's just kind of part of the culture thing. So that was a nice little element to throw in here to kind of allude to the comic that this is based on, but also pinpoint the fact that she's made to feel out of place no matter where she goes because of her heritage rather than appreciated for it. She wants to go to the train station. They want to go grab coffee. She gets the directions, I guess, from a photographer there. And for those of you who are Easter egg people, there's a QR code there. And the QR code, when you scan it, sends you to the issue of Ms. Marvel that this was loosely based on this episode. So I think it's number 12. Anyway, we see she gets to the train station. She's walking around. She sees the sign that says everybody's under observation. So she puts on her mask that Bruno made for her, which really just barely covers her eyes. So I don't know how that's going to keep her from being caught. Then she sees a mural, which I think is a really interesting point here, or interesting moment here, Shannon. She sees a mural of Scott Lang's Ant-Man. So we've been teased Ant-Man throughout this series. Is he going to show up at some point in this series? I wonder. Is she going to be is she going to be on an episode of his podcast? Like, I just got a lot of questions here. And the other side of this, I hope to God someone at Marvel is working on a podcast with Paul Rudd as Ant-Man doing episodes. That is printing money. People will absolutely listen to Paul Rudd as Scott Lang talking about what happened in Infinity War and Endgame for sure. Anyway, she sees the mural celebrated. In the comment there says, "You can start small and still be larger than life," which pays homage to Adrian Alphona, who was a celebrated artist in Marvel Comics there. And then suddenly a knife hits the wall. She's attacked. She battles with this guy in a red kind of scarf. He talks about, reveals some information about Aisha, and we hear that she's not a clandestine, but this guy sends to Noor and then takes her into this lair of the Red Dagger. So let's just stop there. So what do you think about this whole thing with her cousins? What do you think about her wanting to find out more about Karachi? What do you think about her getting to the train station, seeing what the significance of the mural is? And then what did you think about the action sequence and the action fight here between her and what we're going to find out is Kareem?
Well, starting back with her cousins waking her up, and they were kind of giving her, always was kind of giving her some grief about the sloth, the stuffed sloth that she sleeps with. I also had the same thought. I'm just kind of like, well, you guys saw how she was dressed. Why wouldn't you tell her about the dress code?
Family, man, family can be church.
But then when Auntie Roxana shows up, and you find out that Kamala is not a Pakistani name, and that Muneeba was always a little bit of a rebel, and this is not, this is not the character that we've met in the U.S., but you get a little bit of Muneeba's past, and we'll delve into that later. But you start to see how Kamala really is her mother's daughter. I did think it was funny as they're kind of walking around Karachi, and her cousins are kind of like, well, we're out.
Yeah, peace. So, again, family, man. Yeah.
We'll come see you at 4 a.m. to say hi, but if you don't want to do what we want to do, we're going to leave. It was funny as you were talking about the QR code. The thing that stuck out to me was when the guy with the Polaroid camera, the one vendor, when he's like, "Hey, it's only 1,500 rupees," and I'm like, whatever that exchange rate is, it's over $7. Over $7 for a Polaroid. So I'm kind of like, all right, it's not highway robbery, but it's real close. But then, her arriving at the train station, and again, having not read the comics, like, I don't know how much they lean into the whole partition side of the story that we're getting in this, but you just get these hints of the past, these shadows of the past, talking about how some of the oldest residents of Karachi live here because this is where they came from. This is where they arrived when they came from Pakistan or Pakistan. And it's just really, this is the type of thing that we were talking about before. Like, this is a world that's it's breathing so much life into the show. And the moment that she is like, I had the same Ant-Man thought. I mean, I don't necessarily think he's showing up, and I don't think he's showing up, and I don't think he's going to show up in the Marvels. I think there's a strong possibility she could show up in Quantum Mania because with Cassie Lang, who's going to become Stature with the Young Avengers. And granted, in the books, Miss Marvel's not a Young Avenger, but the MCU does take liberties. And it's like, all right, who are our young heroes who could be the Young Avengers? And Miss Marvel would certainly fit the bill. The actual fight I thought was fun. I mean, I like to watch her use her powers. The actor playing Red Dagger, Aramis Knight, who I know he was in Into the Badlands. I'm not familiar with his work. I'm at the end of this episode, I'm not really jiving with him too much. I'm like, there's something about this actor that is just not, it's just a little hollow for me. Especially the "come with me if you want to live." Like, I get, like, in the writing, that was probably really funny. But I don't feel like the beat landed. And then as they kind of make their way to the headquarters, that's where we're going next, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And look, I agree. I think what was great about the episode is getting to see this Karachi through the eyes of the lens of the filmmakers of this, or the directors of this particular episode. I liked that, and I really enjoyed seeing the clashing yet again of the extremely poor versus the extremely rich. Right? She goes from one right to the next thing, right? You see, being at that club where everyone's like dressed up, she can't even go in wearing jeans, where jeans is probably dressed up to go to a place where they were at there in the streets of Karachi just a few seconds later in the episode. So you're seeing that kind of once again, this clash of two worlds. They're kind of just subtly working on you, and I think it's kind of brilliant. And also, what you bring up, the idea of hearing about Muneeba being a bit of a rebel, as you said earlier, which I thought was pretty astute. This idea that there's a connection between the women in her family, and Kamala's and family, right? And so you're seeing that here play out, and we'll find out later, you know, where Muneeba has issues with Sana's stories and fantastical tales, that those were the things that kind of caused her. Yet here's Muneeba being a rebel. So, you know, there's a intrinsic nature in this desire to look for more or step out of the box in all the women in Kamala's family. So, you know, I think that's a good thing, to be honest with you. All right, let's move on here. We go into the back of the restaurant here where Kareem is leading her, and it's the lair of the Red Dagger. And in the comics, the Red Dagger is a vigilante, is one person. It's a vigilante operating in Karachi who crosses paths with Kamala during her visit there. And Kareem later took part in a student exchange program and headed to New Jersey, but it's very different from the comics, their version of Red Dagger, or the MCU's version of the Red Dagger here. And they because in this version, they're essentially what you find out here when we go into the lair. By the way, the lair is pretty awesome. Essentially a bat cave. I saw someone call it a bat cave, which I thought was brilliant. Essentially, this lair is a place for the Red Daggers, the organization, to train, to scope out and find out where the clandestine are. And apparently they've been doing this for centuries. And remember, we only heard from, was it Najma, that the clandestine have only been around for a century, that their version of them. So has this organization been around for a while now? How far back does it go? And this is very interesting that I thought when we saw that. Anyway, we reveal, and then Waleed comes in, who essentially seems to be a leader of the Red Daggers. We get a history of them, that their job is to protect their people from the threats of the unseen. And the clandestine, we find out, are different from the jinn. They're from another realm. And then he shows her the map, how their dimension and our dimension can coexist. I'm sure Shannon got a kick out of that. And brings up a 3D structure out of the floor. And we hear about many dimensions. And we see Aisha's home, which is connected but hidden behind a veil of Noor that separates the worlds. Noor is the energy of the realm, kind of like vibranium in Wakanda, where the veil and the clandestines all are connected to the Noor there. And if they use the bangle, which she was about to do last episode against Bruno's better advice, it could have torn down the wall between the two worlds and essentially destroyed their world in favor of the clandestine world. And Waleed makes a point to separate Aisha from the clandestine, right? She avoids them. And so maybe Aisha is an entity from the Noor dimension that is different. So, and then Waleed sees the inscription on the bangle, said he's never seen an inscription or heard about an inscription on the bangle. And it basically says, what you seek is seeking you. So a lot here in this information dump, essentially in this scene, Shannon. What do you take away from Waleed, Kareem, the conversation about the Red Dagger, and the separation of dimensions, and also the cool little gadgets they got there to show you the separation of the dimensions?
Yeah, this stuff is right up my alley. I mean,
yeah, I knew it.
Again, not being overly familiar with the Red Dagger character, like I knew he was from the books,
right.
But I think taking that and expanding it, making it a mantle, making it an entire, you know, secret society of Karachi protectors. I think that's so smart, and it really, in terms of whatever the future is going to be for the Miss Marvel franchise, whether it is more Disney Plus series, whether it's more movies, or it's going to be movies. I think having a character, having a society like that with her to kind of be able to keep in touch with, I think that's a really smart. That's an asset that you want to use down the line.
Did you get a sense of was it Knights Templar from Last Crusade? Did you get a sense of that?
Oh, sure.
Right, because they were created to protect the the cup, protect the cup.
Yeah,
of
the Grail,
right? The whole Grail.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And I got the sense that it wasn't just like they obviously are monitoring the clandestines, but they do more than that. Like the way I took it is like, these are the protectors of Karachi. You know, they're not going to necessarily protect you from vendors who are going to take advantage of you if you're a tourist. But,
no, because you can see those. It's for the sights unseen.
It's for the unseen. The actor who played Waleed, I think it's Farhan Akhtar. he's one of those guys that, like, as soon as he entered the screen, it's like, this guy's like Tony Leung to me. I mean, there's a magnetism. And then looking him up, it's like, oh, this guy's a huge star in Bollywood. Like, he's a big producer. He's an actor. Like, he's a multi-hyphenate. Yeah. So the fact that he's just one of those guys he's one of those performers that has this incredible screen presence that they step on and you can't not watch them. Yeah. And I think the challenge with an exposition dump is it can feel like an exposition dump. Be like, all right, here's all the stuff you need to know for later. Yeah. But if you have a really talented performer delivering that information in sort of an interesting way, that makes it not feel like that. And it's the same way, like thinking like Adam McKay in The Big Short, like the way that they are able to impart that stuff that you need to know for the story, but you do it in an interesting way. They kind of sneak it in, and you can do it with clever filmmaking, or you can do it with a really, really electric performer. And that's what they did with this. I mean, and, getting to see how, again, it's that stuck between Kamala is literally stuck between two worlds, our world and the Noor world. And also the idea that one world is going to take over another. Yeah. That seems to be the theme of phase 4. And like thinking about Multiverse of Madness with incursions, if Secret War is going to be the big event that they're leading up to. Yeah. So all this stuff I super enjoyed, even though, like, again, Aramis Knight and Kamala's back and forth about, is that scarf long enough to, cover your big mouth? I mean, that was kind of like, I don't care about this. I want to tell me more history. I want to hear more history.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Johnny.
No, go ahead. Even?
Well, I was going to say, and even when he was talking about the whole idea of the Jinn and had Thor dropped in the Himalayas, they would have called him a Jinn. Like, it's really, really interesting, and not knowing that much about it. Yeah. It's really, again, it was just a really, really well done sequence that I wish Aramis Knight hadn't talked during.
Well, there are delineations happening. That's what you're seeing, right? The Jinn, the Clan Destine, these are two different things possibly, right? And Thor being called a Jinn, but it's not the same kind of thing. So there's certainly distinctions being laid out here by Waleed, and also talking about the Noor and the power of the Noor. Remember when the Red Dagger sees her, when Kareem sees her, it's because he senses her Noor. So clearly there's something he's been trained to sense, trained to find out, and he's been tracking her from the streets of Karachi to that confrontation there at the train station. So there is stuff here that is connectable, interesting to explore from that side of things. But you're right, the exposition could have been done so clumsily and could have been done so overtly that it wouldn't have carried the same power. It would have taken you out of the episode. But I think the actor who does play Waleed does such an incredible job laying the groundwork of all of this to get you to understand what is happening, and to get you to really understand what a bullet she dodged last episode by not going forward with using the bangle, because clearly she was being lied to there by Najma. So, and speaking of Najma, let's move on here. We go to the Department of Damage Control. They've got a Supermax prison, apparently. I guess the raft's not in use anymore. The clandestine are there, and they stage an escape. Najma and the rest of the crew escapes, but she leaves her son behind because she says he took a choice. He made his choice. And so he's no longer part of their crew. Now, I don't know if she's doing that to kind of reaffirm how much of a villain she is, or if she's doing that because she's hurt, or if she's done it because she knows if they die, he's got to at least stay alive. So, he's a villain in the comics. So I wonder how they're going to make this all work. And it seems to be they're laying the groundwork for Najma and the Clan Destine, because we do see some of them die, to be killed off, in essence, in interactions with Ms. Marvel. So I wonder if that's what's going to end up leading to the villainy there. Anyway, we go to Kamala finds Nani upstairs. Nani talks about the confusion of self. As I was mentioning earlier, her passport is Pakistani, but her roots are Indian. She talks about a border of blood and pain, claiming their identity was based off some idea some old Englishmen had as they were fleeing the country. That's a very simplistic approach to this, but also one that's not factually incorrect. And I think there's a real interesting conversation to be had about, hey, just because there's a line in the sand does not all of a sudden make us enemies. Why? Why? Because someone years and centuries ago or decades ago drew a line in the sand. We're supposed to hate each other. You know, I think there's a real powerful message being conveyed there about tearing down walls, seeing us as more of a global society. And so there are people who don't want to have that. And certainly that's something that a lot of countries are struggling with nowadays. This idea of the ones that want to stay just caring about their country and the ones that understand that a global economy, global connective tissue is actually important and does help us in the long run. So we're seeing that in this conversation, I think is really cool. And we see Kareem invite Kamala out to a cookout. I'm sure Shannon didn't like this interaction between them, but there's some more interaction. We see Faizan singing in Urdu, and then we go back to the house, and Muneeba is cleaning up around Nani because Nani was up in the top of the house because Muneeba was cleaning earlier in that scene with Kamala, complaining about all the mess. They argue about Nani's theories and the effect they had on Muneeba's life growing up. Kamala walks in later after that conversation. We don't hear any more about that conversation as Muneeba is rubbing Sana's leg there. We don't hear any more of that conversation. Kamala walks in to see her mom at the kitchen table there eating toffee, which is something that Sana said Muneeba loved in days past, which is why she has all those toffee boxes there. So, Shannon, real quick, let's stop here because we're going to get into the big ending sequence here. But, like, this is, as you said, the strength of the show is the relationships with the family, right? We see Kamala's relationship with Sana, with Nani here, really establishing even more powerfully throughout this episode. Their connection is being established more powerfully. And I love seeing that, the conversations, she's letting her in on this world, on this point of view. She's a young girl. Remember this. She's still a young teenager. She's still trying to figure out her life, let alone figuring out how to be a hero. And, oh, she just got told if she uses this bangle, she's going to essentially doom her world and everyone she loves to death or possibly to the will of the Clan Destine. And she almost did that. So it's a lot of an origin story to dump on a very young hero, a young person. So the interactions with Sana are really powerful. And then we get a window, as we said earlier, into Sana being someone who's telling these stories and these theories. Remember, led by the stars and all of that. There's all that story there that we're going to hear more about and find out more about. That is a connective tissue. We found out Muneeba didn't leave because she wanted to be away from her mom, is because she wanted to start over because her mom, in essence, was messing up her life. So it's a fascinating thing. I talk to women all the time about what happens to daughters when they become mothers and start treating their daughters like their own mother treated them. It's a fascinating thing. Is there an amnesia that happens as you transition when you have the child? It's just so incredible and interesting to look at that, where they forget what it's like to be a daughter and then start repeating the same patterns of their mother in treating their own daughters. And that pattern just repeats and repeats in life. It's just an interesting, fascinating thing to explore. So what did you think about all the stuff that was here in these small scenes with Kamala, Nani, Muneeba, and Kareem?
Well, let me go back to the Department of Damage Control first, because we don't know where that prison is. And,
yeah, we don't. With no clue. Yeah.
One of my kind of writing things that sticks with me is they escape.
Yes.
Rather
easily. Yeah.
Yeah, a little easily, but that's fine. I mean, look, they got out. It's 2 scenes later, and suddenly they're busting through the roof of the lair of the Red Daggers. Now, to me, I'm like, that's kind of quick.
Yeah.
For me, the way I would have done this, and I imagine some of our audience will be just like, if you think it's that easy, why don't you do it?
Yeah, sure.
In my head, it's like you start the episode with this scene. You start the episode with them escaping, and that's your cold open. And then you get the Miss Marvel.
All that time, and then that's great.
And you forget about them.
Yes.
So when they bust back in, it's like, oh my gosh, they've been free this whole time. Like, I just think that provides you a little bit more narrative real estate.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that kind of, like, the scene itself I had no issue with.
Can I add something more to your point? I think that would have been great as well, because then the whole time you're having these scenes with her mom, with her grandmom, with Karachi, with her cousins, there's this kind of sense of like, well, when are they going to show up? So it adds a little element of tension, even though you're enjoying the city, enjoying the way she's. So there's almost a little sense of like, oh God, something's going to happen at any moment. So it keeps you kind of dialed in through the episode. That's a great point, Shin.
Well, and truthfully, I think a lot of times the storytellers, you want the audience to forget about them.
Yeah.
So when they do show up, it's a genuine surprise. I mean, keeping people on the edge of the seat, that's great. Yeah. But when you're able to surprise an audience as well, that's nice too. The actual scene, you know, I had no issue with. Like, they're very loosely defined, the clandestines. Like, I don't know where they get their weapons. I don't know if they sort of produced them out of their body or if that guard happened to be carrying them. I just know by the end, when they escaped, they all had their weapons back.
Yeah.
So that was like, okay, all right, that's fine. Whatever. The scene after that, when she gets back to see oh wait, no. Oh yeah, the scene where she's out on the fire with the fire pit and the singing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what that got us personally.
I think it's just giving us a little more of the culture of the connective tissue with the younger people, and her eating out of the bag, a traditional Indian dish. There, asking if it's too spicy. Trust me, I know that pain as a person who does not like spicy things as a Latino.
Oh yeah,
I think
I've seen you have that. I've seen you have that pain. So yes.
It's true. It's the worst.
But I mean, I just like I totally understood that, like, oh, she's starting to relate with people her age who are from this culture. I just don't know ultimately what it got us. I mean, maybe at some point Red Dagger's going to call her Sloth Baby. That would be my guess. But when she comes back and has that great scene with Sana out on the balcony. Again, Partition is something I'm still. After I finish watching a Miss Marvel episode, I'll pull the Wikipedia up and read a little bit more, just because it's something that I'm not very aware of. Love the scene with her and Sana, and love the scene with Sana and Muneeba. Yeah, that was just so that mother-daughter thing. Like, it's just so nice to see, and you get. The whole idea is like, I didn't leave because of you. I left because of basically what you had done. Like, you had kind of poisoned the well for me here. Like, I couldn't exist here because I had the crazy mom with all these theories. And it's setting up, I believe, like this really great acceptance that Muneeba has, not just of her daughter being a superhero, but of her mother as well. Being like, oh my gosh, mom was right. All these years. So I thought that was I thought that was a really, really beautiful scene. And then Kamala getting back and sharing of the toffee. I thought that was so nice. And you got that moment between Muneeba and Kamala where she's like, mothers. Yeah. And it's that connection that, she probably wouldn't have gotten in New Jersey because she's not been exposed to her mom that much. So I thought the family scenes are great. Yeah, I agree. And, there's almost setting up a triad here with Sana, Muneeba, and Kamala, and it may be her accessing their power in essence as family. That is the key to her really kind of standing finally firmly as Ms. Marvel by the end of this series. We shall see. But I agree with you. I love the way they're setting this up. You see the pieces kind of moving into place, almost like a chessboard there for the overall effect. And hopefully it's going to pay off in a way that both of us, or all of us who are watching the show, really enjoy. All right, let's move on to the last section here of the episode. Waleed tells Kamala that it's her genetics that help her to shape the North. She's back there in the Red Dagger. They're teaching her to use her powers. I forget that we haven't had the montage. We've had the montage of her learning how to somewhat use her powers, and certainly she saved that young kid a couple episodes ago, but we don't have her. She's not fully. We haven't had that Spider-Man montage where, okay, now she's good to go. She's still somewhat figuring it out, and certainly in the fight with Red Dagger at the train station, we see some moments of her using her powers, but she's still kind of figuring out how not to get caught up in it, But we hear from Waleed that her humanity links her to the matter of the world, and that's what makes her abilities unique. In essence, she seems to be developing or learning how to develop an armor around her body using her powers there. He gives her a fabric to use for a costume, so she always remembers where she comes from. So I want to say one thing real quick, and I meant to say it a few minutes ago. I'm going to lay this down now. All these actors that you're seeing, other than, of course, for Shannon Kareem, the actor who plays Kareem, it's great. It's great to remember as Americans that there are great actors in other countries that you have no idea about.
So this idea that you're winning a Best Actor award for an American film, in essence, it does not mean you are the world champion of actors. There are plenty of actors in plenty of other countries that we rarely get a glimpse of or get exposure to, who can go toe-to-toe with whatever you see here in the States. And I think sometimes people forget that. And as I'm seeing the numbers come in for this series, I'm seeing some of the crap the series has taken, I think it's a shame that more people aren't watching it to appreciate great acting from other countries and their actors. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I just want to put that out on the table here, because I think it's great to be able to see actors from other countries and enjoy their performances and their styles of acting when they're taking on roles like this. And sure, it's not an Oscar-winning role, but there's a groundedness that they're adding to the series that I think is so essential for the enjoyment of the series overall. Anyway, just wanted to get that off my chest. All right, just then, Shannon's worst moment of the series, the Clan Destine come in using that Game of Thrones ability to travel quickly from one location to another, and apparently found the lair of the Red Dagger somehow. And maybe it has to do with the bangle. Maybe they have a connective tissue.
That was kind of my guess, is that they could sense it.
Yeah, they didn't explain that, but maybe that's what it is. Anyway, they fight down there before heading off into a car chase scene. Waleed eventually gets the best of all the clandestine and then jumps through a window and leads them out the door. So it's Kamala, Kareem, and Waleed there jumping out. They separate. Waleed goes the other direction. Oh, no, they get onto the car there. They're riding. They eventually, then the clandestine grab a truck and then grab another one of those carts or those cars, and they separate out eventually, where Waleed heads back, stays there to try to distract the other clandestine. Kamala and Kareem take off on the motorcycle. That doesn't last for too long. But what's weird to me is, and we see these moments where she uses her powers to protect the family. We see these moments where she uses her powers there to kind of get them, but she doesn't really use her powers a lot here in the sequence. And I was kind of surprised by that, Shannon. I want to get your thoughts as we go after I finished saying everything. I was really surprised they didn't have her use her powers in this whole sequence with the car chase and truck chase scenes. Kind of weird. Anyway, Kamala steals a truck and hits one of the clandestine, reunites with Kareem, and they run through the alleys. Waleed is jumping through the alleys as well and jumping on the buildings here, trying to escape from Najma. Eventually, Waleed sees that Kareem and Kamala are being chased by one of the clandestine who's just about to grab them. He throws his two knives that are protective knives for himself, kills that clandestine, and in exchange, Najma takes the opportunity and stabs him from behind as a villain would in front of Kamala and Kareem. He falls there on the ground, a la Martin Sheen from The Departed there. They don't have time to wallow in the sadness. They run into a dead end, and now all of a sudden she can use her powers with the Red Dagger against the clandestine. Adam dies in one of the sequences there due to the Red Dagger, and Kajma in anger turns towards Kamala and stabs the Bengal with her weapon, which sends Kamala back to Partition. And we see people separating. She walks around, sees the family. We see families talking, two brothers saying, you got to get on the train, a mother and her child hoping that they get onto the train because it's the last train leaving out. And Kamala, to kind of grasp the situation, steps up onto a train, and we get this beautiful and unsettlingly powerful shot that we mentioned earlier in this review, when the camera pulls back and we see the hundreds and possibly thousands, and from what I think I understand, millions of people that were affected by Partition, and we're seeing them all there on the train tracks with these trains and people separating out. And it is absolute and utter overwhelming madness. And the episode ends on that note, which I think is so great. So Shannon, let's talk about the action sequences, talk about the clandestine coming in here as well, and the reveal from Waleed that it's her genetics, which is something that Sana said earlier, her grandmother said earlier, and that it's her humanity that links her to the matter of the world. What do you think of all of this here to end the episode?
Yeah, I mean, I think the explanation, the reason that she can do this with this bangle is because she's part human, she's part clandestine or whatever they are from the Noor world. Right. That's the reason that she is able to access this power from the bangle. I think that's a great, simple explanation. We don't need to know any more than that. Like, that's it. That's why she can do it. Right. The fight itself, I think this does sort of expose the budgetary limitations that series can have, because the brief glimpses we did get of Waleed kind of kicking ass, which was awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
It's, you know, the room fills with a mist or a smoke, so that sort of obscures our view a little bit. It's very quick shots, not a whole lot of wide shots, because those types of sequences, they take time and money. Yeah. And sometimes when you're working on a series, you don't have enough of both. So you know, this is the workaround. Yeah. In terms of the logic of the fight, I don't understand why he says, "Get her out of here." And then Red Dagger and Kamala go onto the other side and wait. Yeah. like I don't run. But then watching Waleed kind of break through that glass again, he was such a great character. Like, I really enjoyed Farhan Akhtar's performance here. I love a good unconventional chase, like watching them race through Karachi on that kind of like almost like a scooter taxi. That was a lot of fun. When they get separated, again, it's such a heroic moment for Waleed, where he kind of like sets the motorcycle part free. And he is doing his sort of, you know, jump to jump, using his daggers, as, you know, being able to scale a building. That's all awesome. Watching Kamala use her powers to save that family. Yeah. I think that's the thing. Like right now, her powers seem to be very instinctual. Yeah. And not necessarily for offense. I mean, most of her powers, it's like she doesn't attack anybody. It's always a response to someone needing help. And so I think that's probably the writing justification, is how come she didn't just take him out with her Noor powers. That's kind of my guess. You know, and because she is still learning to use it. And there, you know, there's a lot of people around.
Well, maybe that's what it is, because I mean, she used the fist on the train station against Red Dagger. So why can't she use the fist to stop the truck that's coming after them? And especially when the truck slams into them and is pushing them towards that family motor, why isn't she using the fist to kind of push down? And I just thought it was a bad look to have the two men be having to save her. Do you know what I'm saying? And this is supposed to be an empowering moment. And, you know, look, you can come after me. Maybe I'm looking too deep into it. And I get it if some of you commenters want to say that. But to me, it's odd that she wouldn't instinctually, as you said, use her powers to save her life, save Waleed's life, save Kareem's life in those moments, and smash the truck or smash things. And maybe you're right. Maybe we're supposed to understand that if she does that, because she's not too in control of it, some people will die, some people will get hurt, and maybe she's not ready to make that sacrifice in her mind yet.
Well, and that's an easy writing fix. I mean, that's one line from Waleed saying you have to be careful with this, because this can really hurt this could really hurt someone.
Yeah, because Kareem says do something, and she's like, I can't do, you do something, I can't do it. So yeah, maybe that would have been something there with Waleed saying, no, don't, because you could injure so many people if you're not in control of it, blah, blah, blah. It's a great point, Shannon.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of those easy one-line fixes. But I didn't get the sense that it was the guys protecting her. I got the sense it was Waleed protecting the elder protecting the kids. Fair enough. That's what it seemed like. That's what it seemed like to me. The moment where she takes out the one clandestine with the truck. Yeah. And then she and Kareem immediately get out of the truck and run. Again, that's a choice that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm like, you're in a vehicle. Yeah. Keep going.
Why are you running across the alley where they're coming from? It seems odd. Why not run away from the alley? Why run towards the alley? You got to cross that. It just seemed odd. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like, again, I love
to a dead end.
I love the concept of the chase. I didn't love all of the execution, because
you imagine Kareem would know the area to not lead them into a dead end, right?
Well, there's that, and there's also the fact that they've left a running car.
I mean, a running truck.
Like, and you can, and again, easy fix. Truck dies. We got to run.
Yeah.
And then getting into, as they're running from the one clandestine, and Waleed has to make that choice. Am I going to save myself, or am I going to save these kids? Right. Great moment watching Najma take him out. And then when I think it's when Kareem takes whatever that canister was and throws it in to that, you know, barrel of water, I guess. And it says it's flammable, but it's just basically a big explosion of water. And you see Najma kind of have her, you know, villain, you know, her Khan moment. which there was a weird hard cut from that I was kind of like, okay, I feel like they probably didn't get everything they needed. And so this is what they were able to kind of put together, which again, film schedules, TV schedules, that happens. Watching the fight, it was funny when you said, like, they stabbed Waleed from behind, but then Kareem does the exact same thing to Adam.
That's Adam,
in the next sequence. I was he's a street fighter, man. You got to survive.
And also, he's a villain, so stabbing the villain in the back, I don't think is a bad thing. Stabbing the hero in the back is the bad thing. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. That's my line in the sand. Yeah.
But then that moment where Najma stabs the bangle, and like we don't actually know what has happened right now. Like, is this sort of she's accessing memories, or has she been physically transported to the past? Because if the bangle can get the clandestines home, who's to say it can't make you travel through time? I mean, but all that aside, what a well done sequence. Like, just the confusion, not just of Kamala, but of everyone trying to get on this last train. And it's just, again, as you said, it was so well done. And again, because I watched the show with the subtitles on, there's all these little snippets that you get that can make me emotional. All these little snippets of scenes that we don't necessarily hear, but they put those in the subtitles for a reason. Like, like it's sick fathers trying to give their sons money because they won't make that trip. The daughter asking the mom, "Are we going to fit?" Like, oh my gosh, it was just so well done. And then as she
have to figure this out.
And then as she climbs onto the train, and as you said, pulls back into that shot, into this, this tapestry of just chaos. I mean, just such, as much as I didn't like some of the action, this sequence as a whole just really, really resonated, really hit me hard, and has me, again, for not loving every aspect of the episode, has me so looking forward to the next chapter.
Which is their job, which is exactly their job. So they completed their job in this episode. And I agree with you. Not everything really worked in this episode as smooth, as seamlessly as I would have liked it to work. But the overall effect at the end there, because of the family scenes, because of the conversations about the past, and because of the actors you've cast in majority of the roles here to kind of give you the information, that moment was able to really affect you emotionally, as you just kind of gave us a window into. Absolutely. And it reminds me of a number of sequences we've seen in real life and before, that you've heard the stories of people like in Vietnam getting on that last helicopter out of there before everything that happened. We've heard about the wall, when the wall was being put up there way back when the USSR took over some of these, split Germany in half, people trying to run across and get across before the wall gets put up. You see that the history is filled with moments like partition in separate countries, that are just devastating moments, and sadly truthful moments that happened to large numbers of people as certain governments took control and enacted certain things, building walls, putting up walls in between people, like those kinds of things. We've seen that, so it's a fascinating sequence and then moment to end on that gets us even more curious to see what's coming in the next two episodes, for sure. And then once again, now they've climbed up onto the tightrope. I said this about Falcon and Winter Soldier. As soon as you open the door to these really intense, complicated issues, like systemic racism in Falcon and Winter Soldier, you've got to really go across that tightrope correctly and get to the other side in a great way. And they didn't do that, in my opinion, Falcon Winter Soldier. Partition, now, we as an audience have experienced at least a little bit of it in that sequence. So there's now a debt the creators and the directors and the writers of the show and the editors have over these next two episodes to live up to that moment and validate that moment, because now we're invested. And I'm very curious to see how they play that out, if they take the simple route out, or if they really do something with these next two episodes that lays a little bit more of the deeper foundation, or attacks it in a deeper way that really resonates with us a little more powerfully by the time the series is over, and gets us excited to see her appearance into the Marvels, and also gets us to understand her cultural significance, which like we did with Black Panther, and Shang-Chi. So there's power there. So maybe I've said too much. I don't know. I'm just talking, and this is what I'm feeling there. So, all right. And Shannon, that's the end of the episode. So any final words, anything we missed, anything you want to kind of make sure we highlight before we wrap up here?
No, I'm just super excited to get to the next. I'm super excited to find out what happened with Aisha after she left the other clandestines with the bangle.
Yeah. Very curious to see what we're going to get for that as well. And will Nakia and Kamala make up? I mean, there's a lot of questions in the air, man. Are they going to make up? And what's the deal? So I imagine we're going to head back to New Jersey in the next episode. Probably start out still in Karachi, Pakistan, then head to New Jersey. And maybe we'll get the mystery of the train as well. What is the mystery of the train? What is significance? What were the stars that led her to where they led her to? And is the Red Dagger, is that society really on her side or not? We're going to find out, I suppose, as things go along. So, all right, well, there you go. And a shout out to the music. I thought the music worked really well in this episode as well. So just a little kind of side shot to the music there. Well, thank you all so much for watching this review episode, the spoiler review episode of the Geek Buddies for episode 4 of Ms. Marvel. We're not two Pakistani people. We're not two women, but we're giving you our thoughts as analysts and lovers of Marvel, and two people who are enjoying the hell out of this show for sure. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at geek_buddies, on Instagram at _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow the absent Michael Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you would like to follow the very present John Roca, it is at The Roca Says.
Present and long-winded. You can also, please, if you don't mind, subscribing to the channel down below. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button so you can enjoy even more of the other content and the Geek Buddies content that is here and upcoming on the Outlaw Nation channel. Hit a like on this video and leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you all think about our reviews. I read all those comments. I don't always respond to them, but I like to hear your points of views. And I think our fans, our viewers, have some of the most astute observations on these shows, and it's been a joy to read their comments and kind of see their points of views on certain big moments in shows like this. So please leave your comment down below for sure. Try not to leave a 20-paragraph comment, but leave a comment down below for sure. And remember to share this on your social media. Put that hashtag Geek Buddies on it. We would appreciate that as well. And don't forget, everything we do on the Outlaw Nation channel has its own podcast feed, but the Geek Buddies have their own podcast feed. So go and subscribe to our podcast feed, the Geek Buddies, so you can listen to all the stuff we do. Take us with you if you don't want to see our pretty faces. Just take us with you, and we'll be good. And leave a review and leave us ratings on that as well. All right, that's it from us. And big shout out to Carbon Health for powering and sponsoring us here on the Geek Buddies. Make sure to go to carbonhealth.com. See if they've got a clinic near you. They also offer virtual care. Any of your healthcare questions, concerns, or needs are addressed there at carbonhealth.com. They even have an app that you can download so you can have a doc in your pocket for anything that comes up when you're on the go. And certainly things do happen when you're on the go. They got 125 plus locations all over the country, 50 plus locations alone in California. So they got you taken care of if you reach out to them at carbonhealth.com. All right, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time with another brand new spoiler review episode of one of the episodes of Captain Marvel here from the
Geek Buddies.
Hey!